Yes, sir, you can go ahead.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right.
Yes.
My name is Chiranjeeb, and I head the marketing for TCS, very specific to Internet of Things and engineering services. So it's been, I think this topic is very nearer to me as well because I'm from that field where we are addressing technology, we are marketing technology to many of our consumers, and we definitely would like to understand the way branding is evolving in the space of this digital age, right? So as we are getting more data driven, as we are becoming more network based, and our entire business model is becoming more network based, we are seeing brand which is a conventional branding is now evolving into more into a digital branding, right? So that's the reason it's very important to understand that how we are translating our brand behavior, how we are translating the brand experience into a user experience. So I think this entire session, the way I have kind of paced it out is, I just wanted to kind of go through some of the essentials, reflect on some of my learnings, what I have seen in this industry for almost like around 20 years now, and then kind of look into some of the use cases, some case studies, and then have a quick interaction to understand, how we can really apply these learnings for startups, right? I understand, startup is definitely needs this because uh, there may be fantastic ideas, disrupting innovation, right, and a lot of that stuff. But if we are not able to take that innovation in a much more meaningful manner to the what the customer is expecting, then perhaps you may be having a great idea, but at the end of the day, it is not going to translate into a good business proposition going ahead. So largely, when this okay, so what we are going to touch upon in this very short presentation of around 30 minutes. So we are going to definitely look into how the brands are behaving in the digital age, right? And absolutely, it is changing, uh, and the consumerism is going to play a very important role in the way the brand is behaving, how the companies are supposed to behave, whether your brand behavior is aligning to the with the consumer behavior or not, is what we are going to see. And then we're going to quickly get into how the brand experience design is also changing, right? So how consumers are going to play a very important role as we go ahead, the users are going to play a very important role, the way our brand is getting perceived, and at the same time, how the brand actions are going to translate with the business purpose. And then we will definitely look into a quick approach. Possibly it is a more from a process that what we should follow whenever we are defining our brand, and how it should translate into an user experience, right? From the journey from how the brand is getting communicated to the way it is getting evaluated, and again coming back into your overall business strategy. And then perhaps some of my learnings, these are not something I would say that coming from the kefras and the icons of the brand, but largely some practices or some learnings which I have, which I just wanted to share with you as part of the sustainable brand experience for startups. So some steps which possibly we can follow, and we can definitely see those changes happening in the way we are going to communicate ourselves, and the startups can really benefit from that. Well, I mean, it's important, if what I say is, I put a product into the market, right? And what people say is what the brand reflection is all about, right? So conventionally, if you see, how brands are typically talking about, right, we generally assign brand into two ways, or basically understand brand into two ways, right? One is the representation of the brand and the reputation of the brand, right? And when we talk about the representation of the brand, it is basically how it is seen, what is the visual, right? And and since it's basically, as human being, we use all of our senses to understand and perceive the way the entire brand is looking like, right? So if I can take an example of, I'm going to take some examples as well. So if you take an example, what is the typography of the brand, right? What is the color type? What is the archetype, right? What is how a brand is being what kind of captions are coming out. So that's basically the representation, right? But at the end of the day, there is another part of the brand, which is your reputation, right? And it is equally important, because largely conventionally we have been focusing more on the representation of the brand, right? Saying that, okay, we need to have a good caption, we need to have a good typography, we need to have a good name. But at the end of the day, how the brand is going to behave and how your users are going to interact with your brand, how how your company's purpose is translating into the brand behavior, and how it is getting perceived by your user is going to define the reputation. Because if you don't define your brand, your consumer is going to define the brand the way you never wanted it to happen, right? So these two elements we will touch upon with some examples, and then possibly we will see some of the best practices. Well, these are two reputed brands, right? I mean, no ways one is smaller or one is bigger or something like that, but I've chosen them to kind of harp upon the point that what is representation and what is reputation, right? Product reputation. So when you talk about uh, Coca-Cola, right? I mean, it's a huge brand. I mean, like more than almost like 150 years old. I think not 150, possibly 140 years old brand, right? And and it's the moment we talk about Coca-Cola as a brand, right? It has its own product representation. The moment you see the color red, which is the physique of the brand, right? You see, oh, it's bold, and it has youth in it, right? It has a specific culture, right? It is an American brand. The Americans are known with this brand of Coca-Cola, right? It has its own self-image, right? I think uh, and uh, and it has its own physique, right? It has its own reflection, right? So that's how basically a product representation used to happen, right? How looking at the color, looking at the way it is being seen, the physique, the culture, the self-image, the reflection, all of this are basically what kind of relationship it has with the target audience, basically defines the product representation. But at the same time, it is also many a times comes as part of a reputation. So if you look at Tata as a brand, right, and like Coca-Cola is associated with Americans, Tata is associated with Indians, right? You cannot take away Tatas from Indians, right? It is an Indianized brand. It is what Indian is all known about, is known of. So in this, what you see is when you talk about leadership with trust, and and that's what the reputation is, how company behaves, right? How your brand kind of behaves to a particular situation, right? So, and every time the first impression comes into my mind is, okay, I can trust this brand. For Tata's, the community is bigger than business, right? It's the philanthropy, the integrity, the service to the nation. These are some of the reputations, right? These are certain perceptions which I have. And I definitely, get this feeling that every one of you in this particular webinar must also be getting that view the moment you just look at it, Tata, and there are certain first impressions you get in your mind, right? So, I mean, this is basically, touches upon those two aspects. What is product representation and what is product reputation, right? And this is how a brand is basically defined conventionally. So what is happening now? How things are changing now? What suddenly happened that suddenly from a billboard, we are talking about user experience. Suddenly we are talking, suddenly from a poster, we are talking about wireframes, right? Suddenly we are talking about algorithms, right? We are talking about feedbacks, we are talking about reviews, right? I think this is what the digitization or the digitalization is kind of bringing and giving power to the consumer. So the consumerism is going to play a very vital role, right? And that's how all of the brands, all of the companies have really taken a note that consumerism is going to play a very important role in the way the future brands or the current brands are getting defined. Because today it is not just I can define a brand, right? Or a company can define the brand. Definitely, we can bring consistency. We will definitely will try to define the brand, but at the same time, you also have to align to the way your consumers are going to react to it. You also have to make sure that feedback is coming into your overall brand strategy, right? And if you're not doing that, then that gap will widen. And at the end of the day, your whatever the purpose which you created the brand will fail. And at the same time, the good thing is, yes, consumerism is definitely challenging a lot of brands, right? But at the same time, the way it is evolving into a data driven business, right? And as I think in previously I've spoken about network based business models or data driven business, right? These are giving us a lot of opportunities to understand our customers, right? It is, the way I think Netflix understands their customer, right? The way Disney Plus understands their customers, right? The way and this is going to define, and it is giving us as marketeers, right, lot of confidence and lot of understanding of our consumers to see that how we can take those insights and feed them back into our evaluation of brands and make sure that we are able to create a sustainable brand experience, right? And there the user experience is going to play a very, very vital role. And I think and how we are understanding the user, and at the same time how we are creating those impressions of a brand through those touch points is absolutely important. So with that, I mean, I will quickly go into a quick example, right? I mean, possibly one case study which we looked upon, right? And why I'm touching Netflix here is perhaps I personally felt that there's so much the disruption which Netflix brought, and it might resonate to many of the startups today here, right? That the way they kind of started their branding, the way they evolved as a company, they how they brought in their idea, how they resonated with their target audience, how they understand those challenges which the customers then with the DVDs and the CDs were facing, and they got into the streaming business, right? So I think that is the reason I brought in this as an example, so that we can, and I also will bring an example from TCS as well, from my own company, so that we also look into more from a B2B perspective as well. So when we talk about the components of brand and digital age, right, largely when we talk about visuals, tone, and action, right? Well, I would say that these were always there. I mean, nothing much has changed, right? The visuals were there, typographies were there, right? There was every time how I'm going to name it, it was there, right? How what kind of websites I'm going to develop is already there, right? You're talking about tone, right? What kind of tone you're going to use, right? It was always there, right? But at the same time, which is also happening is that with the actions, what is your brand behavior is going to play a very vital role. So if you look at the Netflix visuals, right? I mean, if you see Netflix, if you look at the way the typography of Netflix, you can get a feeling that, oh, it's red, it is bold. It's when you look at the way it is coming out in terms of something which is N stands for never-ending streaming, right? I must have seen the way they kind of define their brand, right? So and they definitely emphasize on their value proposition that they definitely would like to entertain the entire world, and that is their mission of Netflix, right? So they are reflecting on that, and the moment you see into the tone of Netflix, see what next, right? I mean, this is precisely what Netflix does, right? They say that in every time they are inviting people, they are inclusive, they want to give a very innovative experience to their customers, and every time I log into Netflix, they have something new to offer me. right? The preferences, the way they measure my preferences, they understand my preferences, and every time they have something new to give me, and they delight the customer. And then that element of delight is very important in every brand articulation, right? Every touch point. And that is precisely we will touch upon when we talk about user experience. And precisely that is how you should define your user experience, that are you able to delight your customer or not, right? The moment like we will talk about actions, right? I mean, like these are basically how your brand behaves, right? Is it if you're in a particular situation when a customer is specifically asking for something, or how your brand should conduct yourself in a particular user experience, maybe on your website, or maybe what is the storyline, what is the narrative of the brand, it's that is the behavior of the brand, and it's been articulated as part of actions. So, and I think it does, when we talk about user experience, you're basically translating your brand experience, right? Whatever, your tone, your visuals, your tone, your brand behavior, right? Everything is translated into user experience at the end of the day. So, and if you're if you're able to do it in an impactful manner, definitely it is going to create a brand differentiation for you, because at the end of the day, to what level you understand your customer, what kind of unmet needs you are able to address, right? Because user experience gives you that distinctive advantage, saying that, okay, how much I can understand my customer, right? What are the latent needs I was able to unearth, all those insights which are coming from the data, right? And how I am able to take it back into my overall brand experience journey is what user experience is going to enable you with, right? So at the end of the day, you need to really understand that what are your customer interaction touch points, right? How consistently you are able to bring that that brand experience through your user experience channels is going to be a very important element of your journey. And as a startup, I feel that it is absolutely important, and I will definitely touch upon that, because we have big ideas, we have excellent products, something which is very disruptive. But at the end of the day, if you are not keeping the user at the middle of all of this, if you are not kind of targeting it in a very cohesive and consistent manner, then what will happen is that you will not be able to create that recall, and you will not be able to build that transformation which you would like to bring into your user journey. So with this, I mean, what is essentially coming out as part of this is that what we should do, right? What are those things? So we will also touch upon some of the experiences. I will definitely touch upon some use cases, some case studies as part of our this session, so that we can reflect on that, and possibly in Q&A we can definitely look into some of your questions and see what we can do right to elevate the overall brand experience through user experience. Well, I think everybody knows about this. I think uh, Disney Plus. There was a time when Disney Plus was part of Netflix, right? And very recently, you might have seen Disney Plus has taken off all of its brand like Pixar or Marvel out of Netflix, right? And you can see Disney Plus has started his own platform, right? And if you go to their website, right, and you get the first impression that how what is Disney is all known about. So Disney is always known for its magical moments, its magic, its animation, the playfulness, the charismatic things, like when you see something coming from Pixar, or when something which is coming from Marvel, right? So at the end of the day, it's very important that your brand attributes are translated on your user experience, right? So if you look at, and that essentially it happens, right? When you go to a Disney website, you fill up a quiz, and the amount of data which they are able to understand as far as the users are interacting, and that precisely the reason Disney Plus came out of Netflix, and they started their own streaming platform, right? So that they are nearer to their customers, right? They understand their customers, right? They bring those insights into uh, giving that delight to their customers, right? And that is how I think Disney Plus is able to differentiate yourself, and they are able to create that resonance in their brand experience using, and create those touch points through the user experience journey. If you look at another example, like which is I think also very nearer to me, is Nike, a very conventional brand, but lately the way it has evolved itself. If you see, if you go to any Nike website, right? What is the first impression you get? The first impression we get from a Nike website is I feel empowered. I'm an empowered user in the moment I go to a Nike website, right? And why I'm empowered? I'm empowered because I can take the call, right? I can choose my shoe, I can choose my color, I can choose my pattern, right? And and that is precisely what Nike as a brand is known as, right? It empowers athletes, right? And it empowers that authenticity and that trust as a sportsman or as an athlete or as a enthusiast you get from this brand, and that is precisely is translated in their user experience as well, right? So it is very important that you are reflecting on those the purpose of your brand, right? You are reflecting on those attributes and you're bringing that in, right? And many a times what happens is that we try to do that, but at the same time we also perhaps don't detail it out to understand that how it is behaving. And there are different ways to measure it, right? And you should consistently measure it, right? That okay, take the reviews, right? Do some surveys, right? Put some adjectives and try to measure that how what kind of adjectives are my users are defining for me, right? And those insights will definitely give you a lot of reflection in a way you should communicate your brand, right? So as a startup, it's very important that these smaller things of how you narrate your journey using UX, right, and translate that brand attribute into your user journey is paramount, is absolutely important, right? So as I've said, I've mentioned that we will definitely look into the approach as well. I mean, and this is a very very conventional approach. This is how the brand experience is created, right? From a research perspective, right? When you're talking about a product, so generally what happens is that all of us from a either we are giving a differentiated service or we are having a very disruptive product, right? And all the startups, we have a lot of insights, we have done enormous research, right? We know that this is relevant, this is disruptive, our customers really need it, right? It's very important at the end. It's important is that how are you defining your brand development, right? So essentially we generally go through the process of what is your business strategy, right? And then you go into your brand development. So your value proposition has to be very well outlined. So most of the times the challenges which we face is that we our value proposition is reflective of what are the attributes of the product and what are the features of the product, right? But it's very important that what is the end value it is giving to the customer from a customer perspective needs to come into your brand experience, if and that has to reflect into your identity development and the way you are creating the value proposition. The another important part is today if you see as all of us in this pandemic, right, we kind of understood one point, right? And that there is a purpose. What is the purpose of the business, right? I mean, everybody understood that, okay, mission, vision, but at the end of the day, what is the purpose of the business, right? And if you are not translating the purpose of your business into your brand communication or into your brand activation or into your brand identity or into your brand promise, right, it has to resonate. Otherwise that disconnect, because your company might be doing something else but your brand is communicating something else, that gap will definitely is not what you want or your consumer would want, right? So that coherence and that consistency is important. So you're going to touch upon your business, you're going to touch upon your employees, your employee alignment, right? What your the voice of the customer, the voice of the employees have to also resonate to what brand is known about, right? If the brand is known for youthfulness, are you able to bring that not only into your product but also into your employee voice as well? And then you kind of create your guideline, and you create your GTM, you do your messaging, you kind of evaluate your media and channels, and then you go into your overall launch. So I think this is a pretty straightforward process, but I just wanted to touch upon this because uh, it's very important that your business purpose translates into your branding, and your brand should also translate into your different tenants, how your product is behaving, what is your employee voice, what is your customer voice. So all of those tenants needs to be coherent to each other. So I think this is as I've said, that we're going to touch upon one B2B brand as well. So B2C brand. So this is Netflix, right? So when you talk about Netflix, right, the way it's started, right, and the way it has evolved, if you look into the way it has kind of narrated itself through this different brand elements, right? I mean, if you look at what Netflix N means, it's never ending streaming, right? So N nowadays, if you see a single alphabet N is what is also representing their brand. So what is the Netflix mission, right? If you see Netflix mission is they wanted to entertain the customer, right? And they have their core values. They have the brand positioning, right? And if you talk about the brand promise, it is the quest. And on top of it, they build their user experience. So and as all of you know that artificial intelligence is going to play a very vital role in marketing and the way you are going to define your user experience, right? All of this condition algorithms or the feedbacks which are we are going to get from our customers are going to define the user experience. So I think we are on that path, but it's very important that at the end of the day, whatever insights you're getting from the customer, whatever the data you're getting from customer, what is the customer voice you're getting is also going back into your user experience, right? So I think, and I'm taking an example of Netflix here because every time the way they kind of refresh themselves, the way they bring that perception, the way they bring that preference for you, using definitely the technology is going to enable them. The AI is the front face of Netflix, but it is important that it is resonating to that brand for which the Netflix is known for. So this is important. So the takeaway for us is, how data insight is again the same message going back into your, brand behavior and how you are kind of evaluating and bringing that delight for your customer. So this is I'm going to talk from my own company, right? And why I've taken this. This is we basically into a B2B space, right? And I had the marketing for Internet of Things. So we also came up with a brand proposition and a framework which is called bringing life to things, right? The moment you talk about Internet of Things, right, and many of our startups here would be also using internet as a foundational technology to kind of as the architecture for many of their products, right? I think that is how they're evolving into this product, right? So the moment this thing comes up, many of people, when we were working on this brand called bringing life to things, right, many people came to me saying that, oh, don't you think it is philosophical? Or do you think, is it a caption, is it a brand? I think this is what IoT does. This is what IoT does, bringing life to things, right? You have things around it, and IoT brings life to it. Pretty simple, right? And a child, if I give this, if I ask a 6-year-old to understand what bringing life to things, he can narrate, oh, I'm bringing life to things. Oh, that is IoT. Okay, fine. So at the end of the day, how you are kind of translating that, it's pretty simple that you are able to bring that recall, right? You're able to bring that mind share, right? And when we talk about bringing life to things, right? And So how it's going to happen, right? So the narration of the brand is, we say that, how when you're connecting the physical context with the digital intelligence to create exponential value, right? So at the end of the day, what IoT is doing, IoT is basically connecting your physical context, the physical entity with the digital, and then you are creating a value for your customer, right? And that can be with different magnitude, right? And we say it is an exponential value it is getting created, right? So if you look at a B2B brand, it is very important that, your messaging, your alignment, your purpose. And as from TCS, when we talk about TCS, right, we always talk about that purpose of the company, right? And today, in the context of the current pandemic, or the positioning which we are taking, that, at the end of the day, uh, TCS believes in that we bring in enterprise which are purpose driven, adaptable, and resilient, right? And we feel that bringing life to things is perfectly aligned to help enterprises to transform themselves using IoT as an enabler, right? So if you are bringing an element like bringing life to things, right? Many of the startups, must be also thinking that, okay, how should I define my product through my brand? How should I define the business value through my brand, right? How should I define the business dimension my product is touching through this brand? So since I'm not going into a business articulation, I'm just staying very relevant to this brand of bringing life to things. So if you look at, if suppose today you have a product, right? Every product has a technical construct, right? And it does something. It has some input, it has some output, right? So what is that technical construct of your product? Is it aligning to the brand or not? That you need to look in. So in the context of TCS, when we talk about bringing life to things, we say that the first important element of the technical construct of an IoT solution is that it should connect in context, right? And it should give that insight to predict, right? And then you are moving into a future state of self-aware, where you are using the technologies like AI or machine learning. You are able to create an enterprise which is self-aware, which is autonomous, and it is able to take its own decisions. So that is the technical construct. So I think, and that is what is happening because you're bringing life to things, right? So how your technical construct is aligning to your brand is, which is basically your product architecture, needs to be thought through. If you're not thinking through, if you're not resonating that to your customer, then your customer would not be able to relate to your product, to your brand. Your customer won't be able to relate your product to the brand behavior you're exhibiting in the market, right? So it is absolutely important that, and it should reflect into your user experience as well, right? Because if you go into our website, you can see how our articulation of the transformation is through these construct. Whenever we are defining or kind of explaining our product, we are using the same language, we are using the same messaging, which brings a lot of coherence and it brings a lot of recall. And every time a customer feels that, okay, yes, this is what essentially a product from TCS should be doing, right? So if you look at, if a product is behaving, it also has a lot of business dimensions as well, right? Because at the end of the day, a product as an enterprise going into a customer enterprise has to touch upon a lot of business dimension. What kind of radical shifts or what kind of transformations it is bringing to the business dimension is also needs to be seen and needs to be articulated, right? So the moment we look at IoT or something which is getting connected, you're actually making your enterprise boundaryless, right? It is, you are not just talking about a physical boundary, but you are actually creating a boundaryless around the ecosystem, right? Your value chain is becoming boundaryless. Your physical presence is becoming boundaryless. Your partners, your stakeholders are, getting into that boundaryless ecosystem. And with this, it is creating a pervasive, your enterprise is 24 into 7 available. It is connected. It's every time it's making some decisions, right? And it is live, it is everywhere, it is anytime, right? And thereby with this, you are able to create that customer experience, that experience rich, that you are able to give a very different experience to your customer by usage of your data or usage of anything. So my point here is not to articulate the business dimension, but whenever you are kind of touching about your product and you are aligning the product with your brand, you should touch the business dimensions as well, right? Then at the end of the day, you also need to see that how it is impacting my customer. Is it what business values my customers are interested, and is it really touching that, right? I mean, all of us know that when we talk about Internet of Things, it is usage of different platforms and all of that. It is innovating new business models, right? Platform as a service is a business model. There are many business models we can talk about, but I'm just from a marketing standpoint, you know and this is basically giving a lot of options to our customers to bring new revenue streams, new business models into their enterprise, right? Well, seamless customer experience, this is also our customer wants, that how they can give us a very different experience to their customers. I think I even touched upon this. Nike is a fantastic example, right? And I think and Netflix is also another fantastic example, that how they're elevating the overall customer experience, right? Well, business agility, you're making your business agile, right? That is also more coming from a standpoint that how your IoT is enabling the operation excellence, and how your enterprise is becoming more agile as going ahead. And at the end of the day, you are making your business sustainable, right? Because IoT is not only just touching upon this sustainability business is not from a financial standpoint, but you also see that a lot of IoT solutions are basically creating a lot of greener uh, products, which are helping you to bring green recovery. A lot of emission controls and a lot of sustainable business enterprises are being created on the foundation of IoT, right? And all of this is creating a lot of exponential value, because these are not going to create an incremental value, right? Whatever is happening with Nike, or whatever is happening with a Netflix, or whatever is happening with these guys, these are not Netflix, these are not incremental benefit, these are exponential benefits, right? So I mean, my purpose of bringing this example to the table from a branding perspective is to see that how are you defining and kind of explaining all of these elements into your narrative of brand communication, and are you really declaring them or not? Are you kind of bringing them into your decision making or not is important. So I think this is more of a reflection from, I mean, largely I have touched upon, but I think I want to summarize, my approach to create a sustainable, brand experience using user experience is something which I see. These are the 7 steps. These are just my reflections, because these are not typically from a book or from a journal or that. This is what is my learning is, and it might differ, but yeah, this is what I feel. So when we talk about the first and important thing, the first important step is to integrate the business purpose with your brand action, and I think we touched upon it. It's very important that the purpose of the business needs to reflect into your brand action. If your brand behavior is not aligning with the business purpose, and I think it is not something which you would want, and this will definitely not help you to create a recall of your brand in the market, right? The another important aspect, a lot of the companies today, if you see a lot of startups are doing it, and I think many of the startups are missing this formula, that you have to keep the customer at the center of your product fit, right? Because what I have seen is that many a times when they launch a product or launch a brand, they miss out on the customer journey, right? They miss out that credibility what customer can bring. So it's very important that at the starting of your journey, whenever you're creating a brand, make sure you're onboarding a customer. Make sure that your customer is with you, because that will give you a fantastic amplification in the market, and the credibility which will bring into the market, and the credibility it will bring to your brand will be something which will really catapult you to a different level. I think many examples are there, and we can definitely look into that. Connect brand promise with the brand behavior. I think this is whatever your brand is promising, your brand should behave like that. So when you say about brand behavior, it is more coming from how your brand reacts to different situations, right? How your user interface reacts with or interacts with your customers, right? So I think that is absolutely important from an aspect, that connect your brand promise with your brand behavior. I mean, the fourth important part is it is more from the data-driven business model standpoint when we are talking about the latent needs or the latent user insights which we are getting from our user experience or from your websites or from your touch points, right? So it's all your brand experience touch points, right? At the end of the day, are you addressing them or not, right? If you have to address them, right, because that is what the customer wants, and those insights are absolutely important for you to create a sustainable experience. Otherwise, you will lose out because you will not, your expectation is something and your brand behavior is something and users are interacting in a different manner. So you need to define that and you need to feedback that into your overall brand experience. Another important aspect is that integrate your brand behavior into digital mediums, right? And that's what, I took an example of Nike here, that the moment I go to the website I feel I'm empowered, and that is what my brand is supposed to behave, right? Is it my, whether my digital mediums, whatever I have, whatever channels I'm using, whatever user experience touch points I'm creating, is it really resonating that or not? If it is not, please test it, please do a survey, please do run analytics to see that is it really giving you those insights or not, right? And do it and then go ahead and launch it. Strengthen the customer and employee voice across the channel. It is very important that the voice of customer, the employee voice, both have to integrate into your brand articulation as well. If you are not doing it, you are missing out on a very important element to kind of amplify your brand, right? Encourage positive experience across the brand experience. I think it is very important that all the positive experiences to be recorded, and how you are kind of bringing that into your user journey is an important thing. So for my standpoint, I think what I feel is these are the 7 steps, right, which I feel all startups should follow, and perhaps this that will definitely help them to create a very very sustainable user experience which is reflective of their brand strategy. So I think with this it is that's what I've said, that if your brand experience is your user experience, right, they are not different, and more seamlessly you are able to connect both of them and reflect on how we should be taking it ahead, is going to give you that sustainable competitive advantage in the market. So I think with that I'll close here, and then I can take some questions and kind of interact and see how we can work together and bring that best practice. Yeah, thank you everyone. Yeah, over to you, Prithvi.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, sir, for the insightful discussion and connecting the brand experience with the user experience and your 7 steps to build the sustainable brand experience. And those 7 steps are really customized. I mean, since it's your personal views, they were literally uh, it can be applied to many of the startups, as I feel. But I will also ask all the incubators who are all part of it. I think I have close to 20 to 21, 25 incubators here to interact with Chiranjeev ji, and probably we can have a discussion over here.
Yeah, sure.
The room is open to the questions. Hello, Mohit ji. Can you speak? Be a little louder.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. You're audible now.
All right. So Chiranjeeb, thanks for bringing out all those elements about brand building and brand experience. My question stems from the fact that your first slide started with 2 of the brands which are almost 100 years plus. And when we are talking to some of the startup world companies, we're talking to them to build the brand. How do you see the time in the market with regards to building the brand versus creating a brand with your higher valuations and raising money? That is kind of, I read cred is spent around 725 rupees per 1 rupee that they earn, kind of thing. In a startup world, it kinds of get difficult when you want to blend this old school of thought that you need to invest at least 100 years to build some credible brand. And the very fact that you kept on talking about Disney's and Nike's and Netflixes of the world, which none of them are Indian startups or Indian businesses other than Tata that we mentioned. So what's your viewpoint on staying in the market for kind of delivering the value decades after decades to build a brand versus just raising few dollars and then saying that this is going to lead my brand building exercise?
Yeah. No, I think why I have chosen these two examples is definitely it's a process, right? It is not something where you can do a little bit of funding and you create enormous amplification in the market, and then you create a valuation for you, but at the end of the day the other elements are not resonating to that, right? So why I have taken these examples, I do understand I could have taken some Indian examples as well. I think there are fantastic startups in India as well. But the most important thing is that, they are reflective of the process they have followed, right? And that is, there is no shortcut to that. You can say that, okay, I will spend more and I can bring a very cash heavy marketing campaign and I will amplify my brand. I will hire big time people and make sure that is everywhere. But if it is not reflective to what your brand is promising, where your product is promising and what your customers are expecting, right, then it's going to fall flat, right? So and it is a process, and I sincerely feel that, and if you are able to follow that process and bring that coherence into your overall decision making, I think and that will definitely change, irrespective of whether it is a startup from India or it is startup from any other part of the world. I feel that process needs to be followed, and I feel that we should be able to create that resonate. We should be able to bring that coherence into the way we are kind of reflective of what is customer is expecting, what is our product promise, and what is our brand behavior.
Chiranjeeb ji, can I ask a related question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, my name is Vinod Midda. I am from EMPI.
Hi,
See, the concern whether it is the representation which builds the reputation or the reputation which builds the brand, or is it a chicken and egg story? For example, we have all debated many times, if Coca-Cola was Cola-Coca, will it make difference? Of course, in case of Tatas, even if you reverses, you still remain Tatas. That is a very smart move that has been made. But which of these two, the startups, especially who have limited resource, as Dr. Dubey said, would be more practical to build the brand?
See, I think it's very important that if you look at just like example of let's one part of is your naming, typography, or your persuasion, or the tone, right, visuals. That's one part of it, because that's where you're going to define your brand, right? But the point is, even if it doesn't take much effort to align your business purpose, the purpose of existence of your enterprise, with your brand, if it is not connected, right? For example, if I look at Tata's, right, let's forget about the name, right? Let's say that it just happened that it was the surname of that great visionary, which has become the synonymous to a big enterprise or a big industrial house in India, right? Had it been some other name, but that's what I want to emphasize upon, is that how they have kind of connected the business purpose with the brand behavior has created that recall, has created that change, right? Naming is one part of it. Had it been Coca-Cola or Cola-Coca, and had they been doing the same thing, perhaps today we might not be drinking Coca-Cola, we might be drinking Cola-Coca.
Just one small thing which I read somewhere, that the Tata brand name was actually, I don't know whether it is true or not, that they were into shipping long time back, and when they used to sail, they just used to wave, and that is how Tata came. I don't know whether that is true or not.
I've not heard about that. right? But it's essentially, like how, yeah, I mean, there where they thought of Tata as a name, but I am not aware of this story actually, Dr. Vinod.
Thank you, Chiranjeev.
So there is a question from AICCCMB. They are like the Center for Molecular Biology. The question is about how does one go about creating a brand playbook or a palette for the same, and how it is important to colors the logo in the UX. Is it mandatory? Like, I hope you have got the
It
question.
is. Yeah, I mean, see, your brand book is basically a guideline, right? But at the if once you have defined your brand behavior, right? When you defined, why do you need a brand, right? What is the purpose of the brand, or then once you are creating that, then you go into a brand book, right? And it is important that even if you are reflective of a color, right, and it all depends, right? Are you in the space of B2C or a B2B, right? If, for example, if I look into this brand like which we have created for TCS, bringing life to things, though we use specific color palettes, right? But the essence is some the way we are communicating it, right? So the way you are communicating it, the way you are behaving, the way your brand is behaving, you can it color may play a role, may not play a role, right? Because it is more coming from a physique of the brand, right? And more from a B2C standpoint, yes. What I have seen from experience, that the physique and the personality of the brand plays a very vital role than a B2B space.
Okay, so thank you very much for that answer. There is a question from a startup. So
Hmm.
he wants to ask you like his startup is a product based, like a physical product based startup, and in that case, since they are techies, they are not sure of how to start. I mean, how to make sure that to build a reputation for a brand. As you said, most of the brand would take a lot of time to build a brand.
Yeah, I mean, it's very important that, yeah, it is a continuous journey. I would still say that, but whenever, like, this startup has a specific product, right? I mean, it's very important to quickly understand the product value, right? And as I've said, the product market fit, right? So every product has a feature, right? You have to define those features, right? You have to define those advantages. You have to define those values, and then from those values, and then you have to align them with your the business purpose. What is the purpose of the business, right? If this product, at the end of the day, what value you're bringing, and connect it back to it. And then you should use perhaps a multi-channel approach, multi-channel amplification, right? To have a customer journey, or have some influencer, or have some opinion leader by your side when you do that. Because, see, at the end of the day, you have to touch all the touch points. And when you're talking about touch point, it is not just your product. You have to touch your ecosystem, right? If you're able to touch those stakeholders in ecosystem, which might be your partner, you might be your customer, it might be your influencer, and bring it all together, I think then you will be evolve into a narrative which has a bigger impact, right? If you just delve upon the fact that my product can do this, or my product is innovative, and you are not bringing that value into your articulation, or you're not articulating the purpose, and connecting with the larger ecosystem, perhaps it will be a very pointed communication, and it will not generate a great recall in the ecosystem. So start small, have a multi-channel view, uh, articulate that entire purpose, and connect it to the brand behavior properly, and consistently do it. Consistent, it is not about how fast you can do it. It is all about how consistently, how coherently you do it, will basically elevate and give a good brand positioning in the market.
Yeah, thanks for that, sir. And there is one more question, which says that so generally startups have lean teams, so it is not possible generally to have a specialized brand marketing team. How do startups leverage? How can the startups leverage? Do they have any such kind of a toolboxes or pre-designed toolboxes to leverage the brand experience or user experience?
Yeah, I mean, there are toolboxes, but at the same time, you startups which are lean into the organization, I think brand is not just the responsibility of the brand manager, right? Everybody in the organization is a brand ambassador, right? That's what I've said, right? Your employees are your brand ambassadors, right? And it is not just a brand ambassador. You might be outlining a brand promotion strategy, but everybody in the organization has to take up some role in kind of amplifying it, and that's how it will create an impact, right? There are toolkits, right, and which will help you to kind of define your brand, or possibly define the brand architecture, or it will help you to define the narrative for the brand, or possibly the entire brand book and all that. But when amplification comes in, I think it's not about the size of the team, but it is more to kind of, and in the digital age, I think it's not about the size, it is more about the ownership and how you are kind of amplifying it through different channels.
Yeah. And could you please elaborate on what could be the critical metrics to measure customer experience? Any of the critical metrics?
Yeah, absolutely. I think your retention and acquisitions are very important metrics, right? I mean, if you look at the customer experience, right? Though today we have a lot of feedback mechanism in terms of how customers are accessing, behaving, reacting, reviewing your product and brands. But at the end of the day, the most important element of your brand experience metrics is your retention, right? And how you are retaining that customer, how you are acquiring those customers are going to be the most important metrics through which you can really measure how impactful is your approach to the market.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. Uh, any other questions the participants would like to ask from the WebEx platform? Yes, sir. One more question I have from the startup is like, what would be the ideal budget allocation for startups to invest in the brand creation?
So I think it is reflective of your segment, right? I mean, it's very important that you quickly understand that what is that product you have in hand, right? And what is the segment you are targeting, right? I mean, if in a
This is
B2B,
for an IoT tech startup. This is for an
okay.
IoT tech startup.
So if it is an IoT startup and it is more coming from a B2B space, right? I mean, I would rather say that it should be synonymous to the overall target audience base. It is the same one. I mean, if I had to say, because nowadays, what is in the space of digital, right? Though you pick up a yardstick in terms of how you should be assigning budgets to your different campaigns, or how your different brand amplification activities and initiatives, right? So uh, largely what we have seen is it's almost like today is around 1%. It's my of your overall, if you are using digital, of your business revenue, you can assign and then slowly grow on that segment. It's very specify your segment and targeting, use different channels and slowly build on that.
Okay, thank you, sir. And what could be when we understand the TCS IoT is working on TCS IoT? Where are the possibilities that you can support startups or create a collaboration with startups? And what space are you looking into if you are looking
Yeah,
any
I
kind of
think
collaboration?
I think TCS has its own startup ecosystem, and they are more than welcome to join that. We do have a lot of our coin ecosystem, which is called co-innovation ecosystem, and IoT is definitely part of that co-innovation ecosystem. And all the startups are welcome, and we can take them through the co-innovation ecosystem, and then we do have a lot of incubation processes and a lot of exercises we do as part of incubations. And there we help the startups to kind of holistically work with TCS and leverage that foundation, and take their products in collaboration with TCS in a much more impactful manner in the market.
Interesting, sir. Thank you very much. I'm sure that all the incubators in our network also are listening to this and leverage this opportunity.
Sure.
Yes. If there are any other questions, I would like to ask from the incubators to the Chiranjeeb ji. Otherwise, we can wrap up the session, and probably you can connect with Chiranjeeb ji or with me anytime later for further communications. Yeah, thanks a lot, Chiranjeev ji. It's pleasure you're here and gave us an insightful lecture on how to create a brand value for startups, and how you should make sure that customer experience should be at the center of the articulation while you're designing a brand for your product or a service. With this, I would like to congratulate all the AICs and other startups who have been part of it. And we wish to have further collaborations with you on our innovation ecosystem further. Thanks a lot, sir. If you have anything else, please do. Thank you.
Thanks, Prithvi. It was a great opportunity to interact with all of you. And if something, in some way, if you need any help, please, reach out to Prithvi and me. I'll be glad to help you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, sir. Yeah.